It began like any other night. A quiet road. A small Texas town where everyone knew everyone. And one young woman who just wanted to take a walk and clear her head. But she never came back. That was May 13, 2016, a Friday. A date people already whisper about. And by the time the weekend was over, Brown County, Texas, would be living its own horror story. Blank, underscore, blank. 25-year-old Rhonda Shante Blankenship, known to everyone simply as Shante, was loved by all who knew her. She had a gentle soul, a soft smile, and the kind of innocence you couldn't fake. She lived with her grandfather, her boyfriend, and her close-knit family who adored her. Shante had grown up facing challenges most of us can't imagine. As a child, she was diagnosed with a developmental disorder that made learning difficult. Reading and writing didn't come easy. Neither did speech. But she never gave up. She worked hard to finish high school. She sang in the church choir. She loved music, laughter, and being surrounded by people she trusted. In her small Texas community, Shante was everyone's little sister, protected, cherished, and never alone. So when she stepped out that evening for a short walk around the neighborhood, something she did almost every night, no one thought twice. She told her grandpa, "I'll be right back." Those would be the last words he'd ever hear from her. Blank, underscore, blank. When the sun came up the next morning and Shante still hadn't returned, her family knew something was terribly wrong. This wasn't like her. She didn't just disappear. Her phone went straight to voicemail. Her favorite shoes were still by the door. By noon, the search was on. Neighbors joined family members, combing through fields and ditches. Police organized volunteers, while others printed missing posters with her smiling face. "Have you seen this girl?" That question echoed through Brown County. Within hours, hundreds of people were out there looking. It felt like the entire town had stopped. But despite the search parties, the prayers, and the endless calls for help, there was nothing. No sign of Shante. Blank, underscore, blank. Then, 2 days later, two locals made a discovery that would haunt them forever. 5 miles outside town stood an old, forgotten farmhouse. Its wood was rotted. Windows shattered. Its roof sagged like it was exhausted from decades of storms. Kids whispered about it, called it haunted. They dared each other to go inside, but most never did. Because everyone felt it, that eerie stillness that made the air colder. That Sunday afternoon, the two neighbors noticed something strange near the property gate. A clump of hair, a bright rubber bracelet, and fresh tire tracks in the dirt. They pushed the gate open, weeds brushing against their legs as they stepped closer to the house. The place looked abandoned, except for one thing. A storm cellar door, half open. One of them leaned over and froze. What they saw would change everything. Blank, underscore, blank. Police arrived within minutes. The area was sealed off. And soon, every detective, every officer, and every camera in Brown County was there. Inside that storm cellar, at the bottom of the concrete steps, was Shante. Lifeless. Her small frame motionless, surrounded by signs of unimaginable cruelty. She was just 89 pounds, barely 5 feet tall. The sight stunned even the most experienced investigators. This wasn't random. It was deliberate. Personal. A weapon was found nearby, something ordinary turned into something horrific. To detectives, it was clear, whoever did this hadn't just wanted to harm her. They wanted her gone. And just like that, Brown County's peace was gone too. Blank, underscore, blank. The next few days blurred together. The investigation launched fast and fierce. Dozens of officers interviewed anyone who knew Shante, her boyfriend, her family, her church friends. Her boyfriend had been at work that night. His time card proved it. Family members were questioned, cleared, questioned again. Police even ran checks on every registered offender within 50 miles. DNA was collected, samples tested, but nothing matched. Every lead hit a wall. Every theory fell apart. And the worst part? There was no motive. No reason. No suspect. Just a small Texas community trying to make sense of the unthinkable. Blank, underscore, blank. Weeks passed. Then months. The headlines stopped. The search parties ended. And while the town moved forward, Shante's family couldn't. They held vigils, lit candles, prayed for answers. At North Lake Community Church, the same church where Shante had sung in the choir, her pastor spoke about her light. How someone like her didn't just vanish from memory. Still, the truth remained buried. And for a year, that farmhouse, the one everyone now called cursed, sat untouched, rotting deeper into the earth. Blank, underscore, blank. But then, one ordinary day, everything changed. A sheriff's investigator happened to be watching a crime program about new forensic technology, something called DNA phenotyping. It could use trace DNA to predict what a suspect might look like. Eye color, hair color, skin tone, even facial structure. With nothing left to lose, they sent what DNA they had from Shante's case to a company in Virginia called Parabon Nanolabs. Weeks later, a sketch arrived, the first real face in a year of faceless nightmares. The man was white, with fair skin, light eyes, and brown blonde hair. A digital composite, born from science, not memory. The sheriff posted it online. They shared it on Facebook. They showed it to Shante's family. And that's when one of her brothers froze. He pointed at the screen and said, "That looks like Ryan Riggs." Blank, underscore, blank. Ryan Riggs. A name no one had mentioned before. A man who wasn't on any suspect list. Someone who lived nearby, went to school with Shante's brother, and knew her boyfriend. No motive. No red flags. Just another face in the neighborhood, until now. When investigators went looking for him, he was gone. No sign of him at home. Didn't show up for work. Vanished. But soon, he'd resurface. And when he did, it wouldn't be in hiding. It would be in front of an entire church, with a confession that would leave everyone in shock. Sunday morning at North Lake Community Church started like any other. A few families trickled in early. Kids ran between the pews. The choir rehearsed softly, the same choir Shante once sang with. It was supposed to be a peaceful day. But just before the sermon began, a man sitting quietly near the back stood up. No one thought much of it at first. Until he spoke. His voice was steady, cold. "I have something to say," he began. Every head turned. And then, in a single breath, he said the words that froze the room. "I'm a murderer. I killed Shante Blankenship." For a split second, silence. Then chaos. Some gasped. Others screamed. The pastor stopped mid-sentence, staring in disbelief. One woman fainted. The man didn't run. He didn't shout. He just stood there, calm, almost detached, as if he'd been waiting for this moment. That man was Ryan Riggs. Blank, underscore, blank. Up until that day, Ryan had been just another face in Brown County. 28 years old, worked odd jobs, no major criminal record. He lived close by. People knew him, waved to him at gas stations. No one could have imagined he'd be the reason Shante never made it home. But there he was, confessing in front of his entire church. The pastor, shaken, asked him to step outside. Ryan nodded. He walked out with the pastor and his parents, who had been sitting nearby, pale and trembling. No one said a word as they got into the car and drove straight to the Brown County Sheriff's office. He wasn't under arrest. No one forced him. He just went. When they arrived, he walked inside and calmly told deputies, "I'm the one you've been looking for. I killed Shante Blankenship. Blank, underscore, blank." Detectives were stunned. They'd chased dead ends for over a year. Now the killer had just walked in, voluntarily. But confessions like that, they don't always hold up. So investigators recorded everything. Ryan sat down, hands folded, voice low. And he began to talk. He said he'd known of Shante, everyone in the neighborhood did. She was friendly, trusting, someone who never saw the bad in people. That's what drew him to her. He told detectives he saw her that Friday evening near the neighborhood mailboxes. She was alone. He stopped his truck, rolled down the window, and asked if she wanted to hang out. She said yes. They drove to a lookout point by the lake. They talked, laughed. He flirted. She didn't seem interested. That's when things took a dark turn. Ryan claimed something inside him snapped. He said he couldn't explain it, that a part of him took over. He told them he just wanted to see what would happen. What followed, detectives could hardly believe. He said he grabbed her, pulled her close, and wouldn't let go. She tried to fight, but she was small, barely 5 feet tall. When she stopped moving, he panicked. She was still breathing, but unconscious. Instead of calling for help, he drove her out to that abandoned farmhouse, the same one kids called haunted. He dragged her to the storm cellar. Then, he said, he grabbed something from his truck, a lawnmower blade, and used it to make sure she wouldn't wake up. Even the most seasoned detectives struggled to stay composed. Ryan said afterward, he drove miles away and threw her phone out the window. Then he went home, took a shower, ate dinner with his parents. Like nothing had happened. Blank. When detectives asked why, his answer was chilling. I wanted both things to happen, the control and the silence after. He said there was a part of him that only wanted destruction. That he chose Shante because she was small, kind, and trusting, because he knew she couldn't fight back. He described it with no emotion, as if he were explaining something that happened to someone else. Investigators sat in disbelief. For more than a year, they had searched everywhere for clues, chased hundreds of leads, and even relied on cutting-edge DNA science. And now, the truth had just walked in the door. Blank. Word of Ryan's confession spread through Brown County like wildfire. That same church congregation, the one that had once prayed for Shante's return, was now reeling from the realization that her killer had been sitting among them all along. People who knew Ryan said he'd seemed quiet but friendly. Some described him as a little off, but nothing alarming. He attended church regularly, volunteered when asked. He was the kind of person who faded into the background, and that's what made it even scarier. The town was shaken to its core. Parents started locking doors they never locked before. People whispered about him in grocery aisles, in line at the post office, outside gas stations. How could he sit in church every Sunday, after what he did? No one could understand it. Investigators went back to the evidence, and sure enough, the DNA they'd found on Shante matched Ryan's perfectly. The confession wasn't just words. The science backed it up. It was over. Still, detectives couldn't get over one thing. Why confess now? Why after a year of silence? Some said it was guilt, that the weight of what he'd done finally crushed him. Others believed it was fear, that with the new DNA sketch matching his face, he knew it was only a matter of time before they came knocking. Either way, his timing was strange. And his choice of place, the church, the one Shante had loved, made the whole thing eerier. When the district attorney announced charges, the courtroom was packed. Family, reporters, neighbors, all there to see the man who had taken their peace away. Ryan faced capital charges that could have brought the death penalty. But after negotiations, prosecutors agreed to remove that option if he pleaded guilty. And he did. He didn't fight. Didn't show emotion. He simply said, "I'm guilty." It was almost as if that confession in church had been his final act, the point where the story ended for him. Even though for everyone else, it had just begun. Blank, underscore, blank. For the Blankenship family, there were no words that could heal what was lost. Their daughter, sister, and friend had been taken by someone she barely knew, someone she might have even trusted. And the hardest part? He had been there all along. He'd seen their tears, their posters, their candlelight vigils. He'd watched as they begged for answers, and stayed silent. Until that one Sunday morning when, for reasons only he knows, he decided to tell the truth. Blank, underscore, blank. But was it really guilt that drove him to confess? Or something else entirely, something calculated? That's the question that would haunt everyone who heard his words that day. Because as investigators soon discovered, even Ryan's moment of truth might have had more to do with self-preservation than remorse. And when his full motives came to light, the story of his confession would take one more unexpected twist. By the time Ryan Riggs stood in front of the judge, the entire town of Brown County already knew the ending. The man who confessed in church, the man who shocked an entire congregation into silence, was now facing a lifetime behind bars. No trial. No long battle in court. Just 2 words that sealed his fate. "I'm guilty." That was it. After years of silence, years of fear and questions, Ryan Riggs finally put it in writing. But for Shante's family, the words brought little peace. Because there's a difference between confession and remorse. And in that courtroom, no one saw any sign of the latter. Blank, underscore, blank. Ryan sat motionless as the judge read the charges aloud. First-degree murder. Life in prison without parole. His parents sat behind him, faces pale, eyes glassy. They didn't speak. They didn't look up. Shante's family filled the other side of the room. Her grandfather clutched her photo, the same one from the missing posters. Her siblings held hands, silently holding each other up. When the judge announced the sentence, there were no cheers. No sighs of relief. Just quiet. Because in cases like this, justice never feels like victory. It feels like surviving something you'll never forget. Blank, underscore, blank. After the hearing, the sheriff spoke briefly to reporters. He called it one of the most disturbing cases he'd ever worked, not because of the brutality, but because of the randomness. There was no reason, he said. She didn't do anything wrong. She was just there. That was the hardest truth for everyone to swallow. Shante didn't have enemies. She wasn't part of a love triangle. She wasn't in the wrong place at the wrong time. She was simply kind, and that was enough for Ryan Riggs to choose her. Blank, underscore, blank. The news spread fast. Brown County was a small place, where gossip usually faded in days. But this story lingered. It didn't go away. People replayed the moment in church over and over again. The quiet voice saying, "I'm a murderer." The gasps, the crying, the disbelief. For weeks afterward, the pew he'd stood beside remained empty. No one sat there. Not even during Sunday service. The pastor said that sometimes, even sacred places hold memories too heavy to forget. Blank, underscore, blank. As investigators pieced together Ryan's final days before the confession, one thing stood out. He wasn't planning an escape. He hadn't packed. He hadn't tried to flee the state. But he had been following the investigation closely. He knew about the DNA sketch that looked eerily like him. He'd even mentioned it to a friend, saying something like, "That looks a lot like me." Maybe it was guilt. Maybe paranoia. Maybe both. Because 6 days later, he walked into church and ended the mystery himself. Blank, underscore, blank. The big question now, the one everyone in town still asks, is why? Why walk into a church full of families, children, and friends? Why confess there, of all places? Some said it was his conscience finally catching up to him. That after a year of pretending, he couldn't live with the truth anymore. Others believed it was fear, that he knew the DNA evidence was closing in and wanted to control the story before it controlled him. And then there were those who thought it was something darker. That he wanted attention, wanted to feel powerful one last time before disappearing behind bars. Because when detectives asked him what made him confess, his answer was short. I don't know, I just felt like I needed to say it. No apology. No explanation. Just that. Blank, underscore, blank. For Shante's family, the confession didn't heal the wound. It reopened it. Her grandfather, who'd watched her grow up, couldn't bring himself to visit the farmhouse site again. Not even after it was torn down. He said the land felt cursed. Her siblings, once inseparable, drifted apart in the months after. They grieved differently. Some blamed fate. Some blamed themselves. But they all blamed Ryan Riggs. Because to them, his confession didn't come from a place of guilt, it came from a place of convenience. Blank, underscore, blank. When Ryan arrived at the Texas Department of Criminal Justice facility, he was placed under observation for mental evaluation. Doctors found no major mental illness, just what one report called a personality marked by detachment and control. He wasn't haunted. He wasn't remorseful. He was simply indifferent. And that might be the scariest part of all. Blank, underscore, blank. Today, the farmhouse where Shante was found no longer exists. It was demolished shortly after his sentencing. Locals said they didn't want that place standing any longer. For them, it wasn't just a house. It was a wound in the middle of their town. If you drive by now, all you'll see is open land, a few trees, and silence. But to those who know what happened, that silence speaks volumes. Every year, North Lake Community Church still holds a memorial for Shante. They light candles, sing her favorite songs, and promise to keep her story alive, not for the tragedy, but for the reminder of who she was. A girl who loved music, who trusted people, who just wanted to take a walk around her neighborhood. Blank, underscore, blank. As for Ryan Riggs, he remains in prison, serving life without parole. He'll never step outside those walls again. No family dinners. No small town sunsets. Just endless time to remember what he did. But whether that time brings him peace or just emptiness, no one really knows. Blank, underscore, blank. There's a strange irony in his final act of confession. He chose the one place that stood for forgiveness, a church. He stood before the same cross where Shante once sang hymns. He used the same space she once filled with laughter, to admit he was the reason she was gone. To some, that moment was closure. To others, it was desecration. A haunting reminder that evil can wear an ordinary face and sit quietly in a pew, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. Blank, underscore, blank. When people talk about Shante now, they don't talk about the crime. They talk about her light. How she smiled through every obstacle. How she found joy in simple things, singing, walking, spending time with family. Her life wasn't defined by the way it ended. It was defined by the way she lived it, kind, pure, and full of heart. Blank, underscore, blank. And maybe that's the real story here. Not the confession. Not the horror. But the reminder that even in the darkest stories, there are still glimpses of goodness that can't be erased. Because while Ryan Riggs confessed to what he took, Shante's family, and her community, chose to remember what he couldn't destroy. Her light.